I told you to hang on to the word covenant. I think we explained it in the past, but as you know, I repeat myself a lot. But before we start, we have Joyce. We have a new face tonight. Joyce will tell us a little bit about yourself so we can give you a warm Arizona welcome.
Thank you. I'm from Indiana, and I just moved here 5 months ago, and I live with my son and his family here in Arizona.
Ah.
So in Indiana, I was baptized and even married in the Catholic Church. And after children left and grown up, and I kind of didn't go to church on Sunday anymore.
Mhm.
So I came here to Arizona, and I'm looking for my faith again, if you want to say that.
Okay.
And I've met a nice man here who said, come to
And he wants to take credit, okay?
He's shy.
Yeah, he's very shy.
So I want to thank him, and I want to thank everybody for being so nice, and I enjoy it.
Okay. Welcome, Joyce. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we touched on this in the past, but about covenant. Now, so you know what a contract is, right? You give your money, somebody, you write a check or your credit card, and they fix your roof or mow your lawn or do the service or sell you a product. You pay for it, you get it, right? And then you may not see each other again. That was purity, that was just a transaction. I pay you for your goods or your services, that's it. The next time you see each other could be in the courtroom, right? Because one of you did not do their part and you're in the courtroom. They sued you or you sued them. That's a contract. Contract, sign your name, right? Anyways, a covenant. So contract was exchange of goods and services and the compensation. But a covenant is an exchange of persons. It's a family relationship, a kinship relationship. Okay? So it's so much more. It involves, sometimes it's death that stops the relationship, as in a marriage covenant, as you know, right? Only when one of them dies or when it wasn't a sacrament can it be dissolved. That's a covenant. It is so much deeper. It's exchange. As in the Lord saying, I will be your God and you will be my people. That's a covenant. You don't sign with a pen, you sign with your blood. A good example, you see the old movies when you have, one tribe and another tribe and they're feuding. And then somehow the leaders make an agreement. And in order to make a good sign to tell everyone that they are now at peace, they will live together at peace. They cut themselves here and then they do this. It's a blood pact. That is a, very good, sign of a covenant. I mean, they really mix their blood. And all the generations from that time on, they have to keep that covenant. They have to honor it, okay? So that's the same thing with our God. So we start with creation, a covenant with the universe. Your handout. The real purpose of the creation story is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We see how God creates by the power of his word. He simply speaks it and it comes into being. That same word of God became flesh and dwelt among us. In the New Testament, we discover that the word is not some impersonal utterance. It is the Son of God, our Savior. So capital W, the word himself is who? Jesus Christ. So as you read in Genesis, the earth was without form or void. There was no structure, no one to live there. One way of looking at creation is to see two sets of 3 days. The first three, first day God creates day and night. Okay? Second day, sky and sea. Third day, land and vegetation. So day and night is time. Sky and sea is space. and land and vegetation is life. So, in the first 3 days, God creates a world fit to live in. Before that, there was no time, there was no space, there was no life. He provided the threefold form of earthly life. So, time, day and night, sky and sea, space, land and vegetation, a place to live. The next 3 days, so you kind of, put the next 3 days in line. On the 4th day, God creates the sun to rule the day, and the moon and stars to shine at night, to rule the night. On the 5th day, God creates the birds and the fish to fill up the space, the sky and sea. You see this parallel? 6th day, God creates the beasts of the field, and finally the human beings to live on the land with its vegetation. So, first he creates the form, and then he creates the inhabitants, or the rulers of that realm. Okay? And finally, on the 7th day, he rests. The Hebrew word that means to swear a covenant is based on the Hebrew word for seven. So, someone who said, I swear a covenant in Hebrew, was literally saying, I seven myself. He to swear a covenant, to seven yourself. So in creating those 7 days, the world, God is swearing a covenant with the universe. He rested on the 7th day. He's not just the master. We are not slaves. He's more than a creator. We are more than creatures. If he stopped on the 6th day, we would only be creatures. We would be slaves and private property. God went on. He blessed the 7th day and hallowed it, made it holy, because on it he rested from all his work which he had done in creation. So God invites us into that rest, because the rest represents the covenant relationship that he establishes with his creation. He blessed it. That was a sign of his covenant with his creation. That's it. The swearing of a covenant again. God is saying, you are my people. I am your God. The Sabbath rest crowns creation as a roof crowns a temple. I like that picture. So understanding time is part of creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What was God doing before he created? St. Augustine had a simple answer. Nothing. He didn't have the time. I love that. And then what St. Augustine meant was that time and space are things that exist for creatures, but not for the Creator. God fills all the time. Remember our God's attributes that we had in the very first classes? His attributes, one is omnipresent. He is everywhere. And that in turn means that God cannot move. Sometimes when we're in trouble, remember, we are so mad at God and we go, where were you when I needed you? And he answers, well, who moved? I didn't move. God doesn't move. He doesn't change. He's everywhere. Okay? Because in order to move, God would have to go from some place where he is to some other place where he is not. But there is no place where he is not. He's everywhere. God is not stuck in one place. He fills space to overflowing. I love this. Space cannot contain the infinite glory of God. We can move because most of the universe is made up of places where we are not, but God cannot move. Also early on, I told you, you and I are so invisible because this cosmos is just so big. We are invisible. We're so small. We are in Gilbert, which is part of Maricopa, is part of Arizona part of the U.S. part of all the other, states, and then the planet is part of, other planets, and then you have a galaxy, and we're so invisible, right? Small dots, so that it'll take us 1 billion years to move from this spot to this spot, and it will be a small instant in God's eternity. He sees everything.
A speck of dust in the cosmos, but God loves
The speck. We're just a speck, but he loves the speck. I love that one too. But we're invisible. The speck is visible somehow. But we are so small, right? But he fills all time. and he sees everything. To begin with, God, the past, present, and future are one simultaneous moment. See, it will take us many years to go from here to there, billion, quadrillion years. It's an instant. And to him, everything is present. So creation is good. So some people, I was talking about this, some people believe that matter is evil and only spirit is good. They say the soul, they say, is good, but the body is necessary evil we need to get through this world. But in the end, God saw everything that he made, and behold, it was very good. Matter as well as spirit, soul, both are positive goods created by God for good. They are ultimately the instruments God uses to redeem us. Here it is, I highlighted it. If we sin with our bodies, God turns around and uses Christ's body to redeem us and to restore us to a relationship with himself. In fact, the goodness of matter is one of the foundations of the 7 sacraments, all of which use material things for spiritual ends. So when you come to the sacrament, okay, baptism uses what? Water and oil, candle, light, tangible things. God created everything good, and he uses those to give us grace, sacraments, a visible sign, instituted by Christ to give us grace. Okay? So when we get to the sacraments, we're going to go through all the matter that we use and the formulas for the sacraments and why there is such meaning in all those things.
I was reading something this week on what scientists are finding about the beginning of the universe. We shouldn't exist. Because their theory right now, the Big Bang theory,
Yeah.
they've extrapolated since Father
Lemaitre
came up with it, is that when the Big Bang happened, it was creating matter and antimatter at the same level, and the two should have destroyed each other. And there shouldn't be a universe. And
Yeah.
they just seem to be going by the obvious answer.
Why can't they even talk? I mean, you're just an illusion. That was also a big New Age thing. That's not there. It's just an illusion. The table, right? Everything is just an illusion.
Or like they say now that everything comes, like scientists refer to it as a God particle. They still don't know.
I
Some
know.
of the things don't make sense, so they just call it.
And they can't find it, but it
What
has
a-
to be there.
One of our favorite priests says, we have educated ourselves to imbecility. We've gotten so smart, that we've lost all logic, we've lost all critical thinking, because we're just too smart. Anyways, right, when you analyze too much, there's no room for faith. You keep analyzing. You cannot explain something, there's no room for faith, because faith is what? Believing in something you cannot explain. That's why it's called a leap of faith. Because you have to make that transition. Because there's so many things about the transcendent, get that word, transcendent God that you cannot explain. It requires faith. And also, Aquinas, faith precedes understanding. Isn't this amazing? You will experience this, any believer. Once you start believing, you start understanding. It's not the other way around. Otherwise, well, Thomas was okay. He goes, well, as soon as I've seen the wounds, to see is to believe. That was Thomas, right? If I don't see it, I don't believe it. We're going to have a problem. I don't see the air, but I'm breathing it. I believe there's air, but I don't see it. I believe that, all your cell phones are working. I don't see the waves. I don't see the wires. I don't see the cables. From California, my daughter's calling me. Do I see a wire going from her phone to mine? Electricity. Do you believe there's electricity? Yes. Do you see it? No. You see it when the switch is on. You have a problem when you say, if I don't see it, I don't believe it. I have a hand up here.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes.
Going back to your paper here, it says if we sin with our bodies, etc. What sins will we make without our bodies? I mean, if we are lusting after someone that's our brain, and we're committing adultery, that's
Oh, yeah, because
So
you're-
is this all sins that he's referring to, or?
You know that the Lord says every sin starts here?
Right?
You think of it.
So, but are they specifically talking about something, or just generalizing? Because it kind of makes it sound like it's pretty specific.
Oh, you mean sinning with our bodies?
Yeah.
Okay, well, everything that we do for sin involves our bodies because our thoughts come from our bodies. I mean, you have to have a brain to have a thought. That's part of your body. Everything starts actually, I don't know, abstract ideas, where they come from, still from your brain.
So then he's basically generalizing every sin. Okay. So
Every
every sin,
sin.
God turns around and uses Christ's body.
Yes.
Right? Because it just was like body. There's.
Well, you know that we are
Right.
body and soul, right?
Right.
Okay. And Jesus is body and soul.
Right.
All right? He has a human soul. By being human, he became human in everything, in every sense, except sin, because he's God. All right? So, you cannot separate the two. You know, without the body, you're a corpse. Without the soul, without the body, you're a spirit. You're a ghost. Without the soul, you're a corpse. To be a complete human being, you know, you're created body and soul. That's why at the end times, at the second coming, the bodies will be reunited with the souls. And it will be a glorified body, teaching of the church. Remember, we were created body and soul. In a sense, if you're separated, you're not whole yet, right? But at the second coming, the body, and yeah, you've been dead centuries, and you're decayed and everything. The Lord who created you has no problem putting you back together, believe me, right? So you've decayed, decomposed, centuries, and then at the second coming, the spirit, the soul will reunite with the body, but now it's a glorified body. With the qualities of the glorified Lord, you know, go through walls, appearing here and there, and, you know, all the, like, super people. Like the qualities that we give to our superheroes, but it's going to be a lot better because you got to just put all those powers together. That's what we're going to be. Aquinas, what does he say?
I just had another question.
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to give us Aquinas.
No, I was just going to ask, so in the beatific vision,
Yes.
the saints are currently, the saints in heaven currently are in the beatific vision, this is why they do not have glorified bodies. Are they spiritually present with God? In the
Yes.
beatific vision, right?
Yes. You know, the teaching of the church, but of course, nobody has been there and come back, except maybe the Blessed Mother. But, so we really don't know exactly, but yeah, teaching of, yes, they see God. But, again, in a way, I don't know if we could say even it's a little lacking, but I can't say that because heaven is perfect, right? But what is said is at the second coming, the souls will be reunited with the body, now with the body too. Whereas there right now, you know, Keith's mom that died a few weeks ago, you know, if she's in heaven, her soul is there, but her body is still in the earth, right? But at second coming, the two will reunite. So it's going to be even more glorious because now you're fulfilled as both body and soul, glorified body.
Is Mary glorified right now?
Mary, yes, she has achieved everything that a creature without sin and all the merits, you know, by her son, is she has achieved all that. She's the first disciple, the model for all of us. The Lord has done to her and for her everything that he will do for us, you know, but she has achieved that. That's what we're going to look forward to, what Mary's already enjoying.
What about John? And,
That we don't know, but remember that Jesus appeared with Elijah and Moses and Enoch, you know, just like Elijah was taken up.
yeah.
And remember at the creed we discussed last week, Jesus descended to hell, which is not the hell of the damned, but the holding place for those who died before he died on the cross. That's where he went. That would be where Enoch would be, Elijah, and everyone that died before Jesus died on the cross, because heaven was still closed. He opened heaven by his death. So he had to go there, preach to them, and you know, they're holy people anyway, They accepted Jesus' good news, which was himself. And, so they're in heaven now. We have every confidence that they are. Okay. So, yeah. Our angels, remember, our angels are forever in the presence of God. Our angels. Remember, they're spirits. They're not limited in time and space. Your guardian angel is in the beatific vision. They see God. Question.
Just a little commentary on like possibility of like seeing saints. I know Saint John Bosco was able to see Saint Dominic Savio, and when he saw this vision, or I'm not exactly sure if the vision or how he presented it, he said that he was in such pure light, and his radiance was, still able to be seen, but still, not really can see it. And when he talked, it was something of a song. Like every word was a song that he couldn't repeat and he couldn't do it. And like he tried to sing it, he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so this was still, this is still not, the part where, the resurrection. This is still, he's in heaven. He's part of heaven. And Augustine says, he saw heaven. He goes, everything in this world, anything can be written about it is strong.
It's
just strong. You can't compare it.
That was Aquinas. So he didn't complete the Summa because he had an encounter with God, right? Thomas Aquinas, he was writing the Summa, how many volumes? And then he stops, right? Because he had an encounter with God, and he says all this learning, all this glorious teaching, and he has the brains, so we still study him. And with that one encounter with God, kind of like a contemplation and infusion of grace right there, and he couldn't stop. He stopped. He couldn't write anymore. He said, everything that I have done, he considered as straw. What is straw? Food for the animals. It's nothing. He says, everything that I've done is straw compared to one experience, one encounter with God. Yeah. Can you imagine that? So the highest experience, pleasure here on earth is nothing compared to God's coming down, giving us a taste of Him. A taste of Him. Okay. So, wow.
Eye has not seen and ear has not heard.
Yeah, eye has not seen, ear has not heard. Or has it entered the thoughts of men, what God has in store for those who love Him?
So on Monday, my kids were in battle, and they were talking about hell. And
Yeah.
When Jesus went to hell.
Yeah.
And John was telling them it's not hell.
Hell.
It's Sheol from the Old Testament.
Yeah. Not Hades, but Sheol, yes. That's it.
That was,
Sheol, not Hades, not Gehenna, not Gehenna. Okay? So it's not hell, but that's the translation problem that we have. Okay, now, go to this one. Since we're on that topic, on the covenant, now we have covenant history. The Lord has 7 covenants with us. Now what's listed there, we have 6 right here. A covenant, a relationship between God and humanity, is manifested through a wider form of human relationship. Also, here's an explanation of covenant and contract. Okay. Salvation history is the story of how we, sinful humans that we are, have been brought into God's covenant family. We see 7 covenants between God and us in salvation history. Okay, number 1. You see your chart there. Covenant mediator is Adam. The role is a husband. The form is marriage, Adam and Eve. The sign is the Sabbath. God rested. We discussed that. That's when He made it holy. That's the sign, is God resting on the 7th day, Sabbath. The next covenant now, fast forward, we go to Noah. Now it becomes bigger. Not just a husband, now is a father. The form is a household, more people. What's the sign? The first rainbow, right? There was rain for 40 days and 40 nights because people were sinning and everybody drowned. People were laughing at Noah building this ark, right, on top of a mountain. Because the Lord had a plan. Now, it rained nonstop. Everything was flooded. Everyone and everything died, except the ones that got into the ark. because Noah followed instructions. So now we have him, his wife, his household, and so at the end of those rains, so Noah kept sending a dove to go and see, to check if the waters have subsided. You know, this happened several times. Then last time, the bird, you know, comes back with an olive branch. Oh, there's vegetation is growing. Okay, so now the water has receded. But after the rains, what happens? What's the sign? The first rainbow. Every time you see a rainbow now, you think of Noah, right? The deluge, the 40 days and 40 nights of rain nonstop. And after the rain, when does a rainbow appear? After the rain. That was the sign of the second covenant. Third, Abraham. Now it's bigger. Not just a household now, but a tribe. Not just a husband and father, but now a chief of several families. And what is the sign? I call this the ouch sign. All the men have to be circumcised to be a family, to be a member of the tribe, to be a member of the Jewish family. You have to be circumcised. That's the sign. Here comes Moses. Moses, you know the story. Now he's the judge. Now it's a collection or different tribes together. Now it's a nation. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the sign is the Passover. We'll go back to that. Now, fast forward. We go to David. Now you have a king. Not just a chief or judge, but also a king. Now it's a group of nations, several nations. Now it's a kingdom. What is the sign? Is a throne, a king. You know, the throne is a symbol of the king. Okay? When you see a throne, there must be a king. Fast forward. Who do we have now? Jesus. The Word became flesh. Now he's not just a king. He's a royal high priest. He's also the King of Kings, right? What is the form? Now it's international. Now it's the universal Catholic Church. What is the sign? Eucharist. The perfect sign. Number 7, you know, imagine that column over there. That is heaven. The marriage supper of the Lamb. That is the 7th covenant. Okay? Now, let's go to Passover. Okay, if you haven't seen it, you got to rent it, buy the DVD, you know, of the 10 Commandments movie. Charlton Heston, yay. Who is here that remembers Charlton? Most of us remember Charlton Heston. You know, the 10 Commandments movie is very close to the biblical account. So the Israelites were slaves in Egypt 400 years, right? And you know the story. Joseph, you know, went to Egypt. He was a famous, he was a prime minister, so to speak. You know, he was in good favors with the Pharaoh of Egypt. But then what happens? They become slaves in the end. So now the Israelites are slaves in Egypt. But God hears their prayers, right? So you have now Moses. If you see the story, if you know the story, Moses was born, you know, Jewish child, right? Now the king has decreed, or the Pharaoh has decreed, that all Jewish boys are going to be slaughtered. Slaughtered. Does that make you remember the innocence, holy innocence, when Jesus was born? You know, and, you know, all the little boys, little infants were killed because of the threat of the new Messiah. Anyways, so now all the Jewish boys were killed. But what happens? Moses' mom, especially his sister Miriam, puts Moses in a basket, hides him in the river behind the reeds, and the princess, the daughter of the Pharaoh, discovers the basket with the baby in there. Prefigurement of what? Baptism, saved in the waters. Okay? Now, so the princess raises Moses, but as an adult, he becomes a murderer. He kills somebody that he knows is a Jewish boy. He murders, one of the Egyptians. So he flees. So he goes into the desert. And there he was, 40 years old, where Jesus calls him Where? The burning bush, right? Anyways. But anyway, so Moses is sent to Egypt to free his people. So he goes to the Pharaoh, says, I need to free my people. Correct my story. Go ahead, help yourself. Anyway, so now we have the story of the 10 plagues, right? I don't know the order. The first one was all the waters turned into blood. Then you have locusts, you have balls of hailstones of fire, you have frogs, you have several. Okay. 9 plagues. The Pharaoh, sometimes the Pharaoh would say, go ahead, leave, and then he changes his mind. So here comes another plague. Here's what's interesting. Number 10. 10th plague. So the Lord tells Moses, okay, go. Tell the people to select a lamb, a young lamb, a 1-year-old, unblemished, perfect. Okay? Slaughter that lamb. So, if there's 2 small families, they can share this lamb. All right? But slaughter. Now, get the blood and then smear it on the lampposts, on the lintel, okay, of your house, your household. So they do this. You gotta follow every single word the Lord tells you. As in when he instructed the Israelites to build the Ark of the Covenant. Remember? The measurements are there. You gotta follow every single instruction. Made of acacia wood, inlaid with gold, etc., etc., cherubim on top. Follow every word, or else. Same thing here. Smear the wood on the doorposts and the lintels. Roast the lamb, right? Now, you can have bread, but because the Lord knows they're going to be set free, you got to be ready to travel. So your luggage is packed, your sandals, your sash, your walking stick, everything is packed because you got to be ready to travel. So you cannot wait for the yeast to rise, therefore you don't put yeast in the bread. Do not put yeast. You can't have that time to wait for the bread to rise because you have to leave when I say leave. Okay? So everything is ready. What else? You have to eat this roasted lamb. If you're allergic to it, tough. You still have to eat it. All right? By the way, in those times, they didn't care. They didn't have allergy tests or whatever. You ate what was on the table because you were that poor. Matter of fact, you were lucky to even have meat, right? Anyways, you have to eat. We got to go to that later because it's such a cool story. Now, because sometime during the night, obviously it was the Israelites that did this. The Egyptians didn't. They didn't believe, right? The Pharaoh did it. So, sometime during the night, at midnight, the angel of death will come. And every firstborn in every household will be killed, except the ones that are within that household that have the blood smeared on their doorposts and lintels. That's how the angel of death knows who to slay and who to pass over. Pass over that household. So the Pharaoh's firstborn dies. And now, after the 10th plague, he finally believed that your God is serious. After all these other plagues, right? So he says, go. Take your people. Get out of Egypt. Get out of here. That's why you have to be ready. All the luggage is packed, everything, all your possessions, whatever you could pack, that's ready. So they go. They leave. See that now? Pass over. The angel of death. All right, listen now. Here's the interesting part. You have to get a lamb, young, perfect, unblemished, no broken bones. You have to slaughter. You have to smear the blood on the wood of the doorposts and the lintels. Who is the perfect lamb? Whose blood is smeared on the wood? And what else? You have to eat the lamb. Right. Louder. Did you get it now? Did you get that? Perfect lamb of sacrifice. Smear the blood on the wood. You have to eat. Let's look at Abraham and Isaac. Isaac, what? The son. Abraham is told by God, you have to sacrifice your son Isaac. Abraham doesn't say, didn't you promise me that I'll be the father of a multitude? And then you have me kill my son. He didn't say that. He went and got Isaac and then had Isaac carry the wood up to this mountain, which is the same mountain range as Calvary. Okay, things working now in your head. Okay, the same Isaac, only son, carrying the wood. He didn't even know he was going to be, killed on that and burnt as a Holocaust. Carrying the wood up the mountain, Stations of the Cross, Jesus carrying the wood up Calvary. Okay, and that's where you're going to be slain as a sacrifice, as a Holocaust. Except in Isaac's, place, the angel, dropped poor ram. Here's a ram. Okay, that's why Isaac wasn't slain. The Lord stopped Abraham's hand. He was ready to kill. Do you have that faith? I just do what God tells me. Even if he said, I'll be a father of a multitude, and then he lets me kill my own son, Abraham just went ahead. I'm not going to question him. I don't think he forgot his promise. He was going to do it some other way. He just was ready to kill his son Isaac, and then the angel stops his hand, and here's a ram, and the ram becomes the sacrifice. Isaac carrying the wood on which he will be offered up. Jesus carrying the wood, the instrument of his death, where he is nailed on that cross, right? So you see all these things. Typology. Okay. Passover lamb, the perfect lamb, the high priest now, right? You had to eat. Part of the covenant. Remember the covenants we were talking about? It's usually ended or signed, sealed, with a blood pact. And what happens after that? There's always a celebration. There's always a meal. There's always a banquet. There's always a marriage supper of the Lamb. It's sealed, We were enemies, but after this covenant, we sit down and eat together. Wow. You're speechless. You see that? You're connecting the dots, right? That's what we're trying to do here. Connect some dots. Typology is so great when you see all these things. When we get to the sacraments, we're going to have more of this. I told you already about one of those. Moses saved, in the river in a basket. Baptism, prefigurement, saved by the waters of baptism. They go through the Red Sea, the Israelites, right? They're going. Red Sea, another typology, another type of baptism. You cross through the waters, die to sin, come up on the other side through the waters. Baptism. Very interesting. You'll never get bored if you find some of these things, which is what we're trying to do when you get to these classes. Okay? Questions? Insights? I probably missed something. When I get too excited, I forget a lot of things. And I can go too far ahead because we have all these other topics ahead of us. Oh my God, you're so good. Questions from the other topics?
Did you say Moses murdered someone?
Moses did, yeah, because he found out that he was a Hebrew, and then this Egyptian, they were all workers, they were slaves. This Egyptian was maltreating, beating somebody up, his countryman, another Hebrew. So he kills this Egyptian. Well, of course, he tried to keep it a secret, but then, somebody sees, obviously, And they said, you know, they threatened him. Yeah, you're going to be put in jail. So what did he do? He left. That's when he went and hid in the desert. He married, who did he marry? I got to go through that. But then
They got
he,
it in Exodus.
yeah, in Exodus. And then, you know, but that's where the Lord called him. And then he goes and let my people go, and the Pharaoh keeps saying no. Yes, sometimes, then changes his mind. So all those plagues come. But the 10th plague is what we were interested in because of that Passover. So you see the progression from Adam as a husband, marriage, 7. Noah now, it becomes a father, a household, more people. The sign is the rainbow. Now we go to Abraham. Now it's a group of families, this tribe, tribal chief, and circumcision is the sign. Moses, fast forward, now he's not just a tribal chief, he's a judge. And now it's a group of tribes, it's a nation. It gets bigger and bigger. Passover. David now is a king, now it's a group of nations. It's a national kingdom. The throne is the sign. Now we go to Jesus, the high priest, the King of Kings. It's now universal, international, not just a group of nations, international, universal, which Catholic means, right? Universal. The sign is Eucharist. Number 7 is in heaven. I don't worry about that. I want to be surprised. I want to be amazed and get to heaven, right? That's our goal. I want to be amazed. But we're being given a taste of heaven right here at the Mass at St. Anne's, the Mass at the Vatican, Mass at Father's country in Nigeria, Mass in Japan and Germany. Taste of heaven. The same liturgy happening in heaven, the same liturgy happening at every Mass. You know, some of the saints, mystics that could see, they see heaven open and they see angels coming up and down, because the angels come and worship with us. I told you before, every empty space in the church, in the pew, is taken up by angels. If you just thought about that, right? You're going to behave. You got to behave at church, right? You got to stay awake. You don't want your angel. Wow. What if an angel nudged you? What a miracle. What a great miracle. Wake up. It's consecration time, you know? Wow, would that be something? But every empty space is taken up by angels because they are worshiping. Remember, they're outside of time and space. So the same liturgy in heaven, the same happening at every altar, every Catholic Mass. So we have all of heaven worshiping with us. If we were going to give out $1 million, you know, every Sunday, can you imagine how long the lines will be? But what are we giving out? More than $1 million. What an awesome miracle to be a part of. Not just on Sunday or Saturday afternoon, but every day if possible. And twice a day. Because, you know, you have a baptism, you have a wedding, you have the regular, you know, daily Mass. So you can go to 2. But remember, the second one, you have to be fully there, participate in that entire Mass. And then you can receive communion. The awesome God who gives us himself. He wants to give himself twice a day. I told you, you got to be ready with your buckets empty. You got to be ready for those graces. Be the first one in line. Be the first. You got to be fighting your way through this. Hey, let me go. I want some. I want all of it, Lord, and don't limit. Don't limit the Lord's graces. Lord, I only want a little bit. This, no. I want everything that I can handle. Lord, make me overflow. See, not just what it's going to fill me up. I want to overflow. Then I could share. Then they could share. This is a good news we're talking about. And we're talking about God himself. Body, blood, soul, and divinity. Not just a leg, just because we don't receive the precious blood. Right? Here at St. Anne. Doesn't mean we're only getting part of Jesus. we're getting the whole entire Jesus. Every little bit of that host, every little, microscopic crumb is the whole entire Jesus. Imagine that.
It's like when they print a hologram on like a piece of glass, and if it breaks, the entire image is on every
It's
shard.
on every.
It's on every little piece. It's so the universe is kind of like that.
Oh, wow, what a great explanation. It's in every little piece of that broken glass. Wow.
Yeah, it's hard, I don't know about that years ago.
That's a great explanation. So, yeah, at St. Anne's, did you notice, right? You go to other parishes, they always serve the precious blood too. They always drink from the chalice, but not at St. Anne's. Do you know the reason why we don't do that at St. Anne's? I have 1 minute, I'm going to explain to you. When Father came from Europe, Father Sergio and Father Juan, they're from Spain, as you know. And in most of the world, and especially in poor countries like mine, we cannot afford having the wine every time at every mass. My country was a mass every hour of the day. We would be very poor. We would be so poor if we had to serve the wine, which is after consecration, as you know. It's called the precious blood. Okay? So, Father, they're from Europe, so they know. They go in uniformity, just like most of the world. So we do not have to serve the precious blood. So we stop. Because I told you, every little microscopic crumb of the host is the whole entire Jesus. You're not missing out. Yes, having the precious blood is a fuller expression, okay? But you are not missing out. And if you could not have the host, you're allergic, and we have a few people that have celiac disorder or disease. They're allergic to wheat. So we order special hosts that have 0.0001% of gluten, okay? Very small. Because some people, they just break out and have a lot of reaction just from the wheat. So they will have a sip of the precious blood, consecrated wine, now the precious blood. So they will do that. Okay.
So does that find the communion way through the way there to symbolize the bread that was told the Lord told the people to make, before the
Yeah,
Passover?
thank you for pointing that out. Remember the unleavened bread, when they were baking the bread before they leave Egypt, they did not put yeast. So the host that we have, okay, at Mass has no yeast. It's pure wheat and water, that's it. No sugar, no raisins, no salt, none. Okay, and mostly we have a congregation of nuns that bake those, and then they have another group that bake the very low gluten hosts. Okay, so yeah, that prefigures the host that we have right now. It has no yeast. Thank you. I told you I forgot something. So the unleavened bread that the Israelites had to make they can't wait for the yeast for the bread to rise. That's the same thing we have now. Remember, oh my God, Moses' time up to this present time, unleavened bread. Now the Eastern churches, they do have leavened bread, okay, yeah, but we don't. Okay.
The shy one over there has his hand up. The shy guy.
The shy guy.
Just two things. One is as a credo Catholic, we never had the precious blood. When we received our first communion for 21 years until it happened. So it's never a problem, and we always received on the tongue. So
Yeah.
I
I always received in the tongue.
But the other one I'll tell you about, as far as the universal church, the amazing thing that happened to me, I have some friends now that are in Africa, and since we had this cruise day, we have some friends in Africa. And the other day, I could go to the the USCCB and get the readings, the daily readings, and I always fell off the chair. When I went into their site, when it came up, they had the exact same readings in this little parish in Kenya.
Yep. Sign of our unity.
Exactly the same readings that we have here. And it just proved to me,
Yeah.
I've finally seen it, that it's universal. It's a little.
That's one of our signs of our unity. We have one pope, okay, that's our unity. And the readings at every parish in the world, even with the time, the time zone differences, is the same reading. We read from the same book. We have the same formula for everything. Formula for baptism, for the sacraments, for weddings. We use the same book. Okay, now go to the any of the 40,000 other denominations, and they have to decide, Catholic, EWTN, I wanted to mention this, the one that was talking, Journey Home, was it yesterday or today? It was Alan Hunt, who is a pastor of Mega Church, Pastor Alan Hunt, now a Catholic. He was here last year or 2 years ago. He gave us a talk on marriage and all that. Alan Hunt, if you remember, those who attended that one. Anyways, he was the one being interviewed. And pastor of a mega church. So he was saying, the mega church, when he started noticing all these other things, his eyes were being opened. So he said with the mega church every week, they have to go and kind of outdo last weekend's service. They have to make it better and better. And then he said, well, his words were, it's like nothing really is sacred, He says, we're focused on, he mentioned, why do we say altar call when there is no altar? He goes, I don't even understand why we mention an altar call when there is no altar. He said, Baptist churches don't have altars. There's a Baptist here, don't we have some? There's no altars, read the pulpit, the pulpit. Why do we even call altar? Because altar means sacrifice. An altar means you have a sacrifice going on. But Alan Hunt said, well, here's the choir, or, the cool music, people, all the lights. He says, so when he enters, he says, I don't understand it now, Why do we even have an altar call? There's no altar. And then Marcus Rhoda says, when he was a pastor, they had a thing about, they started something, let's go to prayer, for 40 days. So his shift was 2 to 3 a.m. So he goes to their little church. So he sits down, and as middle of his prayer, he goes, what am I doing here? I could do this at home. There's really nothing here to focus on or whatever. I could do this at home. Christine Franklin said, the same thing. I could do that pastor's speech or homily or sermon, and I can do it better. Why am I driving? She was in Peru. Why am I driving several miles to go to this when I can do this myself and do it better? Then when they discovered the Eucharist, Catholic Church, of course I'm biased, right? So I'm telling this. So you go into a church, and you've all felt this. Everyone that's given us a little testimony. You go into the Catholic Church and you feel different. Why? Because Jesus is present in the tabernacle with a red light on, the vigil lamp right there. You felt different. It's different. You have a presence there that you will not have in other churches. There's no tabernacle. There's no consecrated host. Okay? So he was saying, what am I doing here at 2 to 3 a.m. praying? I could do this at home, and I could do it better there. And he was alone. Alan Hunt said the same thing. We had a 7-day, we had this bright idea, we'll have 7 days of prayer. And they go, what are we doing here? Because they had to reinvent the choir each time. They had to do the lights each time. They had to make it better and better. Steve Ray says the same thing. We have to make it better and better every weekend so that people would come. And I think he was the one, he wasn't the one, but I heard, or I read something about think about this as we go home. Who is the original mega church? Just do your math, all right? The original mega church. Do your math. How many parishes? Average membership, 2,000. Some Protestant pastors were blown away because he goes, Marcus and all, my 300 people congregation, I thought that was big, you know. And then they go to the Catholic Church. They go, what? And some of them are here every day. We can have mass every day, not just on the weekend, or twice a day. So the original mega church, okay, just do your math, several parishes, several parishioners, and every day, all right? The original mega church. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we thank you for everything that you have given us, our lives, number one. But everyone that you have given us and will give us, your gifts, Lord, past, present, and future. We pray for our family trees, past, present, and future. And all our family, our brothers and sisters who need our prayers the most, we lift them up to you, Lord, with the intercession of our Mother and our saints and angels. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, and is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. I have handouts from the last 2 weeks. I think they're there, so please help yourself. Next week, do not miss it.